My name is Mia. Once I was a dancer, graceful, alive, and free. The stage was my world, the rhythm of music my heartbeat. But that was before. Before the accident. Before Tony. I remember the day I broke my leg as vividly as yesterday. The screech of tires, the rush of adrenaline as I pushed Tony out of harm's way. I hit the ground hard and pain like fire shot through me. My leg was shattered beyond repair. The doctor said I would never dance again. Tony cried at the hospital. He held my hand and whispered that he couldn't imagine his life without me. That moment, as tears streamed down his face, I thought I'd made the right choice. Losing my leg felt worth it because I had saved the man I loved. Life after that was hard. My career, my dream was gone. I took up part-time jobs to help make ends meet while Tony pursued his. He promised me we'd make it through together. A year later we got married. I thought love would be enough to replace what I'd lost. But love, I learned, can be cruel. It was our second wedding anniversary. I wanted to surprise Tony, so I left my shift at the cafe early, a small cake in hand. My heart fluttered with excitement as I walked up the stairs to our apartment. Maybe tonight would remind us of what we had, of what we could still be. The front door was unlocked. Strange, I thought, since Tony was usually meticulous about locking it. Quietly I pushed it open and stepped inside. The apartment was dim, but I could hear soft laughter coming from the bedroom. A woman's laughter. My stomach dropped. The cake nearly slipped from my grasp, but I steadied myself, convincing myself it couldn't be what it seemed. Maybe he was planning a surprise for me too. I took a step closer and froze. I had to marry her because that stupid woman lost a leg for me, Tony's voice said. Sarah's laugh came again, light and mocking. Well, you could have said no. I didn't ask her to save me. Tony snapped, his voice sharp. She lost a leg and now I've lost my whole life of happiness. The world spun around me. I gripped the wall to steady myself, but it felt like the ground had disappeared from under my feet. My breath caught in my throat as the words replayed in my mind, each one slicing deeper than the last. I wanted to barge in, to scream at him, to demand answers. But my legs refused to move, my heart crumbling under the weight of his betrayal. The man I had sacrificed everything for didn't love me. Worse, he resented me. Sarah, of all people. She had once been a background dancer for me, someone I had encouraged and mentored. How long had this been going on? How many of our shared smiles and memories were built on lies? I turned around, my breath hitching as I stumbled out of the apartment. The cake slipped from my hands and hit the floor with a dull thud. The cold night air felt like needles against my skin as I stumbled away from the apartment. My mind raced, a chaotic whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. My chest heaved with shallow breaths and I hardly noticed where I was going. Then the blinding flash of headlights seared my vision, accompanied by the deafening blare of a car horn. My body froze in place, my legs locked, the irony of the moment slicing through my haze of pain. Another car accident? Was this how it would all end? I felt the impact, or thought I did. But instead of pain there was a sharp jolt and then, nothing. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't lying on the cold pavement or in a hospital bed. I was sitting and leaning against the wall. My heart raced as I took in my surroundings. The walls were familiar, lined with mirrors reflecting the polished wooden floor beneath me. The dance studio. Mia, did you have a good nap? I whipped around at the sound of her voice, Sarah's voice. She stood in the center of the studio, holding her position with a dancer's grace, a faint sheen of sweat on her brow. I just practiced my part several more times, she said casually as if nothing had happened. Do you mind watching me again and giving me some advice? Her voice grated against me, but her words barely registered. My hands trembled as I backed away, my mind reeling. This couldn't be real. I turned toward the mirror, my pulse thundering in my ears. My reflection stared back at me, whole, vibrant, unbroken. My leg was fine. I rolled up my pant leg to see smooth, unscarred skin where there should have been a jagged reminder of my sacrifice. It was impossible. But the proof was right in front of me. My gaze darted to the corner of the room where my bag sat. I scrambled toward it, pulling out my phone with shaking hands. The date on the screen made my breath hitch. 1 year before the accident. 1 year before I saved Tony. 1 year before I lost everything. I stumbled back, my heart pounding as reality, or something stranger, settled in. This wasn't just a dream. This was a rebirth, a second chance. I turned to Sarah, still waiting for me to critique her dance. For a moment I saw her differently. Not as the woman who had betrayed me, but as someone who hadn't yet played her part in my downfall. I didn't know how or why I was here, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to waste this chance. Tony wouldn't take my future, Sarah wouldn't take my peace, and I would reclaim the life I was meant to live, on my terms this time. I had barely begun to process my second chance when Sam appeared in my life again. It was after a long rehearsal at the studio. I had stayed late, perfecting a routine, when Sam showed up unexpectedly. Sam is a tall, good-looking businessman and was Sarah's ex-boyfriend. I know him through Sarah, but I'd barely paid much attention to him in my last life. I've written him off as bitter and petty when he tried to warn me about Sarah and Tony a few times in the last life. But this time I listened. I know this might sound strange, Sam began, his tone cautious, as if he expected me to push him away again. But I thought you should know, there's something going on between Sarah and Tony. I've seen them together. I have nothing to do with Sarah anymore, so it is really not my business, but you are a nice girl and I think you deserve the truth. His words sent a chill down my spine. It was like déjà vu, a memory from my past life replaying itself. I remembered how I had ignored him before, brushing off his concerns because I trusted Tony completely. Not this time. Tell me everything you know, I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Sam's surprise quickly melted into determination as he shared what he had seen. Late-night meetings, whispered conversations, lingering glances. Things I'd been too blind to notice before. Fueled by a mix of betrayal and resolve, I decided to test Tony. I accepted his help with errands, pretending to lean on him as a supportive boyfriend while quietly setting the stage to catch him in the act. Sam, to my surprise, offered to help. It didn't take long. One evening, with Sam by my side, I confronted them. Sarah and Tony, tangled in each other's arms, froze as I barged in. The shock on Tony's face turned to anger, while Sarah looked smug as if she had won some unspoken game. Mia, it's not what it looks like, Tony stammered, his voice dripping with desperation. Oh, it's exactly what it looks like, I said, my voice calm but cold. You don't have to explain. I heard enough the first time. Tony's face twisted in confusion, but I didn't give him a chance to respond. Turning to Sam, I said, let's go. I've wasted enough time here. As we walked away, I felt the weight of my past life lifting off my shoulders. This time, I hadn't waited for Tony's betrayal to consume me. This time I chose myself. Sam started visiting me often after that. At first, it was just to check in to make sure I was okay after the breakup. But over time, his presence became a comfort I hadn't expected. Sam wasn't flashy or charming in the way Tony had been. But he was kind, thoughtful, and deeply considerate. He listened when I talked, even about the smallest things. He encouraged me to get back into dancing, reminding me of the joy it brought me before I met Tony. Before I knew it, I started looking forward to his visits. A few months passed and I was finally beginning to feel like myself again. Then the news came. Tony had been in a car accident. He had broken his leg. A cruel twist of fate that mirrored my own sacrifice for him in the last life. When I heard about it, I felt nothing. No pity, no sadness, no anger. Just a hollow detachment, as if the universe had finally balanced the scales. Sam noticed my silence and placed a hand on my shoulder. You don't have to feel guilty for moving on, he said softly. He made his choices and so did you. A year after I walked out on Tony, I found myself back where I had always dreamed of being. On stage. The lights were blinding, the music surged through my veins, and the audience was a sea of anticipation. But this time it wasn't a dream or a memory. It was real. I had worked tirelessly to rebuild myself, one step at a time, refusing to let my past define me. My leg was strong, my heart even stronger, and my passion for dance burned brighter than ever. As I moved across the stage, every leap, turn, and stretch felt like a declaration of victory. The audience erupted in applause as the final note of the music faded. My chest heaved, my skin glistened with sweat, and my smile was unstoppable. This was my moment. As I bowed, my eyes scanned the crowd, and there he was, Sam, standing in the front row with a bouquet of red roses in his hands. His smile was wide, his eyes bright with pride. After the show, I met him in the lobby. He was waiting patiently, the flowers cradled in his arms. "You were breathtaking," he said as he handed me the bouquet. His voice was filled with awe, as if he couldn't quite believe what he had just witnessed. "Thank you," I said, my cheeks flushing. "I couldn't have done it without you." "You could've," he said softly. "You just didn't know it yet." I laughed, shaking my head. "You always know the right thing to say, don't you?" He shrugged, a playful grin on his face. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just your biggest fan." I hugged the flowers close to my chest, the scent of roses filling the air. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive. Not because of someone else, but because of what I had achieved for myself. And standing there with Sam, who had supported me every step of the way, I realized that my life was no longer defined by what I had lost, but by everything I had reclaimed. This was my rebirth, and I was ready to keep dancing forward into a future I had built with my own 2 feet.